In the Gun, episode number 47, the Reed Williams episode here on ITG. We've got some spring ball rolling along, some familiar faces back with the program, maybe some changes coming to pro days in the future. Plenty to get to on this episode of ITG. I'm Wesley Uhler. I got the best teammates in the business here on this podcast. The signal caller, Jed Drenning. Our dearly beloved Owen Schmitt he's got another speaking engagement this evening. You know, he's out there, Jed, spreading the good word of the ITG podcast, you know, everybody's favorite new WVU football podcast. So no Big O tonight, just me and Jed, but we'll still obviously get into some good conversation here, and we hope Owen's having fun with everything that he's got going on. This episode of ITG brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your source for all of your college basketball betting needs this season. Every analysis, every play, prop, and point, it's all at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. You've got updated odds for everything from live games to the conference championships to the Final Four in the championship game. BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters. So head to their website today or use your mobile app to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Be sure to use the promo code Bleav when you sign up to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV at betonline.ag, where the game starts. Yeah, Jed, we're going to have some nets cut down here in the next couple days as the college basketball season comes to a close.
I mean, what a calamity of a bracket. I really, I was just having this conversation with some other friends over the last couple of days. Never before do I recall a circumstance in which so quickly did you realize I'm out. I'm out, right?
Right.
And
first time ever that none of the top, since the field's been expanded to 60, 64 and 68 teams, first time ever that there hasn't been a single top three seed in the Final Four. Pretty crazy.
It almost feels like the same element of parity can take on a lot of meanings, right? And it's strange to say that about college football with the same handful of teams being in competition for those 4 playoff spots each year. But there's more upsets in college football at large recently. And I think that started to encroach into the basketball front, because I think what you're seeing, Wes, is it used to be Princeton would upset Kentucky because, in the years past, because Princeton had a glue that held together 4 or 5 kids that were together for 4 years.
Correct.
Kentucky didn't, right? They might be more talented, but they were the team that Princeton.
4th and 5th year guys versus a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds. Yeah.
Well, now you don't have to be Kentucky to have a team that hasn't been together. The portal has made a long list of teams that haven't been together. And I think those teams are ripe to be upset, which is what we've seen by maybe a few teams who have been together a little bit, but it's made for a very interesting March Madness.
No, it certainly has. And I laugh too at what, everybody wants an upset, right? Until it actually happens. It's like the same people, Jed, that have been screaming, it's the same teams in the college. We got to expand the college football playoff. It's the same teams every year. It's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's Michigan, it's Ohio State, it's Clemson. Those same people are now complaining, well, this Final Four stinks. I mean, there's no big. Where's Kentucky? Where's Kansas? Where's UNC? I don't either. And also, let's not act like UConn. I mean, this is UConn's 5th national championship game in the last 25 years. All right. I mean, they're a college basketball blue blood. They're in that kind of upper tier. Yeah. But it's just funny how we can't make up our mind on that. We complain that it's the same teams all the time in the college football playoff. But then when we finally get a lot of fresh new blood, 3 teams here making their first ever trips to the Final Four, it's, well, this kind of stinks. It's not that interesting. There's no big time programs in it.
Yeah, if you ever want to go to the Final Four, now's your chance because tickets are available. You're right, Wes, and I don't understand that narrative. I mean, I do think I'm consistent when it comes to either March Madness in the Final Four or the college football playoff. Like, I'm the Joker from Batman. I want complete,
chaos,
unmitigated disruption and chaos.
You just want to watch the world burn.
I love it. And then when I see it, I love it. I mean, I don't want the same old characters, the same usual suspects. So I think it's great for the sport at large. I think it gives these programs maybe an opportunity to build in a way they otherwise couldn't. And maybe they become somewhat more consistent in terms of being a contender. Who knows?
I mean, Jed, FAU's gym holds like 2,800 people. FAU's gym holds less than 3,000 people. I mean, think about that, and think about what this exposure and the money and all that's going to do for the program. I mean, it legitimately could change their program for the long term, and that's what I mean. Isn't that what this is all about?
It's all about access. I mean, we said the same thing a couple years ago when Cincinnati slipped into the CFP.
Yeah.
It's all about access, so that's why, and we've had conversations ad nauseum on here before, and we'll have more about the expanded playoff going to 12. I mean, I think that's good for the health of the sport for a host of reasons, because there's broader access.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, that's really what the NCAA tournament's always been about. I mean, if one word could define March Madness, it's upset. I
It's
mean,
madness. I mean, that's
what
it,
is that
right?
tournament coveted? What reason is it coveted more than upsets? I mean, that's what people love from the tournament. I mean, you might not remember. You remember Sister Mary, but you might not remember who ended up, cutting down the nets at the end of that particular
Right.
tournament. Right?
Right.
You remember the upsets. You remember the David versus Goliath upsets.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
I think it's great. And now that we do get, I'm not complaining. I like it. I'm
I love
glad
it.
it's happened.
I do too. I love it. I love the new faces. I love the new blood. I don't care if the TV ratings aren't quite the same because Kentucky or Kansas or Duke isn't in it. It's why it's March Madness. It's what we like. It's what we love. And
San Diego
yeah,
State's becoming an interesting animal, aren't they?
they certainly
I
are.
mean, from a branding standpoint, I mean, they're getting serious about the investment level on the football side of things financially. They represent. There's an appetite in that market in San
Mm-hmm.
Diego. Um, who knows what might happen with that team? Whereas just 5 years ago, I'm not
Yeah,
so sure I would have entertained that possibility. But
great point.
we'll see where that goes. And
It's
this run into the final, who knows? We'll see.
We will see, but it's always it's intriguing. It certainly is, especially when you've got all that new blood in there. Absolutely. You know what? Let's stay around campus here for just a second,
Yeah,
Jed. Before we get into all the football conversation, how about a little shout out to the WVU baseball team?
absolutely.
Hot start to the season, 20-5 so far. They have entered the top 25 poll, I think, at number 24. Just took down Marshall this week in kind of a dramatic victory there in the Mountain State Derby, if you will, right? And as you were rightfully pointing out before we started recording, big shout out to Randy Mazie, who got his 500th win as manager.
Yeah, hats off to Coach Mazie. How can you not be a fan of the Mazie family? Everything Coach Mazie's done for the baseball program, everything Amanda has done for the school, really at large. So we've arrived at a pretty good place from a baseball standpoint. When
We
you
have.
and I we're talking about the old days of Holly
Oh, it's
Field,
amazing. It's
and
amazing.
it's a different species. It really is. I mean, the brand of baseball we were playing in the Big East not that long ago. I mean, 2011 at Holly Field, near where the
Jed,
track
it is
is.
it is Manhattan, Kansas versus Manhattan, New York City.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
World of difference.
And once that facility, the new facility, what a beautiful facility it is, was built overlooking the town, overlooking the Mon, overlooking the Coliseum. Uh, we've done our part. Coach Mazie's done his part in
Yeah.
filling it with a quality product. He really has. So if you haven't made it out to a couple games, I highly suggest you do so. Wes, you and I were just talking about what a great family experience it
It's
is
awesome.
to be able to take that in, and it's such a neat commodity. I remember it took me a while to look around and realize I actually am in Morgantown, because the first couple times I attended a game there, it felt like something you had to leave town to do. That level of play, that quality of play, and that type of venue, you didn't feel like you were in Morgantown. You're staring over the hill at Morgantown.
Yep.
Now that you've settled in and got used to it, it's made Morgantown an even cooler town. You really didn't know how sorely it was missing until we had it.
Well
right?
said.
Until
Well
we
said.
had it. So, but great job by Coach Mazie. Keep it cranking, man. Keep it cranking.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling here. Certainly. Let's have some fun watching this baseball team into the spring, and hopefully make a run at a College World Series appearance here. This episode of ITG brought to you in part by our friends at GoMart, here to keep you going. Make sure you're signing up for your GoMart rewards as you travel all across the Mountain State. Jed, speaking of names that have done a lot for the program, Rasheed Marshall is one of those as it relates to the football program. He is I mean, listen, unless you're a very young person listening to this, I think you're familiar with Rasheed Marshall, right? Was early days in the Rich Rodriguez era. I think really part of a lot of teams that springboarded into that success of the Pat White era. Those teams walked so that Pat and Owen and Steve and all those guys could run. Rasheed, a big part of laying the foundation for what was that great decade of the 2000s there.
Absolutely.
Well, he's back. He has joined WVU football as player relations director, and it's pretty cool. He's got an interesting story. I mean, he runs his own fitness company. He's done broadcasting stuff in the past. He's kind of got a career where he's been all over the place, maybe a little bit like a Pat McAfee in that regard, kind of, has dipped his toes into a lot of different avenues and had success in a lot of different areas. Now he's back. Player relations director. I think this is awesome. Rasheed Marshall is one of the first WVU football players that I have clear, vivid memories of. He was the quarterback when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, right at that age where I was really starting to get into WVU football. I think I've told the story on the podcast before, but one of my favorite WVU football memories was 2002, the first backyard brawl at Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium, when Rasheed Marshall went against Rod Rutherford, the two Pittsburgh kids. Rod Rutherford was 3-0 against Rasheed Marshall in high school, beat the crap out of him every year, and Rasheed finally gets his vengeance and wins the first brawl there at Heinz Field. So for a lot of different reasons, just very cool to have Rasheed back in the fold and involved with the program.
Yeah, he's going to serve as a liaison between the players and some of the administrators on campus. I mean, he'll be very involved in the fifth quarter program, and absolutely perfect fit, if you ask me, replacing Usman Kamara, who previously held that post. But to get Rasheed back around the program, first of all, he's more chiseled and cut than he was the day.
Oh my gosh!
It's like
he looks like LeBron James.
He's
like
freak.
not being 6'9", but like he looks like he's chiseled out of rock, man. It's insane.
Yeah, we talked about that function we had with the kids before they went to New York. What's it been, 6-8 weeks ago? Remember we talked about on the podcast? Well, Rasheed and I sat together. Rasheed's always been my guy. All right, like I remember when Rasheed was playing and Stu was coaching the quarterbacks for Rich. I mean, I would often come over to the facilities building and sit in and watch tape with him. Okay. And I mean, Charles Hills was there. But Rasheed's always been my guy. I mean, I've been a Rasheed guy since day one. And I still say that had Rasheed stayed healthy in that transition year between Coach Nealon and Coach Rod in 2001, he was an ideal fit for what Rich was trying to introduce offensively. Brad Lewis did what he could, but he wasn't built to run
Sure.
Right. So he was kind of asked to dribble with his left hand. And Rasheed got hurt, missed most of the season. He got hurt early, didn't come back until late. I think you might have had a different look on that season than 3-8. I think Rasheed would have brought enough value to let you recognize you were building towards something. But I'll say this. I don't know who, and I'll accept arguments, if you're putting your Mount Rushmore of WVU football in general together, that's fine. You have to have Pat, Major, Don Neal. Okay, there's going to be names, okay?
Yeah.
But I'll entertain some arguments maybe for that last spot. But what I won't entertain, if you're putting together your Rodney Dangerfield Mount Rushmore of WVU football, I will accept no arguments.
Okay? Rasheed's on there.
My first entry is Rasheed Marshall. He is the most unheralded, underacclaimed. Why, I don't know. Why he doesn't get the credit that he's due.
I think it's because he was right before Pat White and Steve
right
Slayton and Owen.
Rich didn't win without Pat White. Rich didn't do anything. Let me tell you something about Rasheed. First of all, we all know 2000. I hope we all know 2004 Big East Offensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
Pat White has, and we're going to do an episode imminently on this because I have all these numbers I've combed through in the offseason. But Pat White has more wins as a starting quarterback. We know he won the 4 bowl games. He's only got to start and win 4 bowl games. We know that. He has more wins as a starting quarterback than any Mountaineer quarterback in the history of the program. His record as a starter was 6-2. Ironically, he didn't start Louisville, so as a starter, he's not 7-2. He's
makes sense.
Owen's 7-2, right?
That's right. Big O.
Yeah, so Big O's 7-2. Now, so number one in all-time wins against ranked teams is Pat White with 6 in the history of West Virginia football. Guess who's number 2?
Rasheed Marshall
with 5. Yes, the second most wins against ranked programs in the history of West Virginia football by a starting quarterback is the guy who doesn't get any credit. The 2004 Big East Offensive Player of the Year, Rasheed Marshall.
I love it.
We were winning big games consistently with Rasheed. And here's the other thing about Rasheed. Wes, if I was to ask you, what's the signature play of his career? A couple of things come to mind.
I got one, though, that stands out.
You're going to say Virginia Tech to Garvin,
No,
right?
Actually, I'm not.
That's the thing about Rasheed.
That's the thing about Rasheed is we could talk about the touchdown pass at the end of the brawl. We could talk about Virginia Tech. I go, though, 2004 when we beat Maryland in overtime, him throwing to Chris Henry in the back of the end zone.
So many.
First time we had beat Maryland in 6 years. Yeah.
And not only that, I don't think people recognize or appreciate the extent to which he was a big play waiting to happen. You want to talk about plays of 70 plus yards, 75 plus yards through the air as a passer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is up there in terms of the history of West Virginia signal callers. He had so many big plays with his arm. We know what he did with his legs, but with his arm. And that is just such a dimension or piece to his game that nobody talks about enough.
Completely
he
agree.
made so many big. You remember the fourth down conversion to Chris Henry against Rutgers right before the half?
I sure do.
The punt return unit out there.
That was 04 as well, too, right?
What's that?
That was 04 as well. Was that 04 as well? I think it would have been 03 or 04.
No, it wasn't. I'll tell you when it was. It was the week after the loss at Miami. So it would have been 03, right? 03. Yeah, it was the week after the Quincy loss at Miami. So, yeah, they had the punt return unit. That was a 70-some-yard touchdown pass. I mean, the one you're talking about in that battle at Heinz Field against Rod Rutherford, I mean, one of the best plays of his career, in my estimation, was the scramble to extend the play, rolling to his left, finding Phil Braxton 79 yards. I mean, it's just he made so
against his thrown
plays.
Against his body.
Yes. I mean, what is it? Why doesn't he get the credit he should? I love having Rasheed.
It's a great question.
He and I sat next to each other at that function a couple months ago, and it's always great to catch up. We'll text and talk back and forth and keep each other updated in our situations. But it's always great to catch up. And, you know, he entered a unique situation. I mean, he had kind of an extra level of pressure on him. Being not just a Pittsburgh kid, but a Brashear Bullet, right?
Sure.
A Brashear Bull, I should say. He's a Brashear kid. The Brashear Bullet was Major, which added this extra pressure.
Same quarterback from the same high school as Major. Yeah.
There you go. They're expecting Major 2.0. You know, well, I think in some ways you kind of got it, but his game was different. His game was different than Major's, but he was so productive. I mean, the back-to-back wins on the road, how can you forget it? In the span of 10 days at Blacksburg against a ranked Virginia Tech team, 10 days later at Heinz Field against a ranked Pitt team, we had the upset of number 3 ranked Virginia Tech. When we so desperately needed that win.
So that's what I was going to say. I know those 5 ranked wins, I know 2 were Virginia Tech, 1 was Pitt. Was the Maryland overtime win in 04? Maryland might have been ranked.
Look at that. They may have been.
Because that's when Ralph Friedgen was there, and they were, they were playing good football in that. It
was a huge deal for us because we got the Maryland monkey off.
Oh, they had beat us 6 straight years.
Oh, yes.
Jed, I don't know. I think I might have told this story on the podcast before, but I don't know. We tell a lot of stories and everything. That game, I was 13 years old. That game, it was the first year that my parents had given, or my grandparents had given up their WVU football season tickets. Okay. So my whole life until I was 13, my grandparents had a blue lot pass. They had an RV. We had like 8 season tickets. I mean, it was every Saturday. But my grandpa and grandma just got to the point where it was just too much. You know what I mean? They were getting older, doing the RV, all that stuff. Like it was just too much. And that was the point that was the first year they gave up their season tickets. Like we still went to a couple games a year, but it wasn't every game in the RV, in the blue lot, all that.
Yep.
My mom and I, that was a noon game. My mom and I woke up that morning and we're like sitting at the breakfast table at like 8 o'clock, 8:30. You know, it's about a 90-minute drive for us from where we live in Pittsburgh to Morgantown. And my mom and I are sitting there. I'm in 7th grade, and she's like, "You want to go to the game?" I'm like, "You want to go to the game? Should we go to the game? We should probably go to the game. I mean, come on, it's a nice, beautiful day out. It's Maryland. I mean, come on, we should probably go to the game." My mom and I, on a whim, just got in the car, drove down to Morgantown, scalped tickets, went right into the game, and then end up beating Maryland in overtime in an epic finish. I jumped into my mom's arms, 13 years old. First time we had beat Maryland in 6 years. That's a great memory. It is.
That's terrific. It's so impromptu. You know, I mean, don't those make the best memories? They weren't
the best.
Just spur the moment. And we left at like 9:30. We got down there at 11:15, went right into the game, and the band's playing. You know, it was great. Strangely enough, that happened in 2004. And I think one of my most stark memories of that is 2 years ago. Okay, because Pac-Man came back, and you know the situation with Pac-Man and Chris Henry's kids. Well, Pac-Man's kind of taken on the responsibility of raising those kids. And don't look now, but Chris Henry Jr. is a Mac stud. He's a stud. He's a highly coveted receiver prospect.
Like a first round draft pick 4 years from now.
That's right. It wasn't very windy the day that acorn fell from the tree. But Pac-Man came back to a game a couple years ago, and we had him on for a segment up in the booth. And I remember during one of the commercial breaks, I was talking to Chris, like Chris Jr. Okay. We were over in the corner, and I was showing him, I put my iPad out and I was showing him on YouTube that catch by his dad. And he was just like, he had this look on his face. He got all lit up. And I said, the beauty of it is that happened right down
right there.
And his
I still
eyes
see it.
like
Runs that slant, catches the ball, throws the ball up in the air when he's celebrating. The whole team mobs him and everything. Yeah.
I mean, he threw that flag higher than that ball higher than a big official throws a flag. You know,
that's right.
But I remember the look on his face, showing him that play as we're looking down at the field in that corner from the press box.
Yeah, that's
cool
the best.
His reaction to
that's the best. Listen, he's going to have offers from Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. He's going to have offers from everywhere. But if we can end up getting Slim Jr. in Morgantown, that would be pretty darn cool.
Yep.
Pretty darn cool. It's almost like you wish he was just like a 4-star instead of this bona fide 5-star. You know what I mean? Like Ohio State, Georgia, leave him alone. All right,
Well, here's what I'll ask: would you rather have a 4-star and no Pac-Man involved, or a 5-star?
Well, that's a good point too.
With Pac-Man,
I don't know. That's a good point too. Hey, we got Rasheed in the fold now. Our boy Blake Stewart's there as well too. I mean,
but
we're working it.
Anytime you get these guys that were so instrumental to the success of the program, especially, more recent eras of this, but it's the Rasheeds of the world, the Pac-Mans of the world. First of all, I'm terribly excited to have Blaine back around. I'm terribly excited to have Rasheed back around. And even the fact that Pac-Man was able to make his way to practice the other day, and Neil had him speak to the team briefly afterwards. I mean, I think it's critical to the health of the program. And I think Neil recognizes that too. Your heritage means something. And when you're the 15th winningest program in the history of college football, that's something to beat your chest about. And some of the guys that were involved in some of the biggest wins leading to those types of things, of course, you want them around. And they understand the program. They understand what it means. So you could have anybody fill that position, arguably, as a liaison from the players to the school. But why have anybody when you can have Rasheed? I mean, he's going to bring so much more value that's difficult to quantify. I mean, when he can walk these kids through some of the experiences that he had, through some of the meaningful wins that he had. So I am so fired up about it. I mean, again, he is the Rodney Dangerfield of West Virginia.
He is.
I mean, we need to launch a campaign to, and
I'm good with that's the official stance. That's the official stance of ITG now. I'm good with that.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you know how you have the movement to retire 5.
That's right.
Well, how about also respect 2? Yeah, that's a good movement. Hashtag respect 2.
Hashtag retire 5. Hashtag respect.
That's right. Yeah. So we're gonna add another hashtag, right? So, but no, Rasheed meant so much.
So much.
So, and I hated to see him go out the way he did with that season in 2004. That team in general, really. I mean, with what we felt they were capable of.
Yeah.
Now they had some adversity come their way that we didn't see coming, but with what they accomplished, overcame in 2002. In 2003, I should say, 2002 was the breakthrough season. 2003 was the rough start and the rebound, and then it kind of set the table for 2004, but it just didn't come together. I mean, Rasheed was explosive and dynamic, but
Big East Offensive Player of the Year,
the wins weren't there the way we thought they might be. And when you look at the guys who hold him in reverence, Pat White's one of those guys, right?
100%.
Why wouldn't he be? So, great to have Rasheed back around. Just great to have Rasheed back.
Absolutely. I messed up, Jed, now that I'm thinking about this. So my first WVU football jersey was an Avon Coburn jersey. Okay. That my Uncle Chris bought for me for Christmas when I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, something like that. But my first WVU jersey that I picked out myself was a Rasheed number 2, the blue with the yellow stripes.
Yeah.
I've still got it up in my closet. I should have worn it here. I should have worn it for this episode. It just hit me now. I should have put that on. But don't worry, I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back at some point. But I still have I've got the number 2, those awesome Nike jerseys with the stripes up the side and Mountaineers across the chest. I've got my number 2. I've got my Rasheed Marshall. If you're about my age, I was born in 91. If you're about in that age group, I think, like I said, a lot of your first vivid WVU football memories involve Rasheed Marshall. So yeah, great to have him back.
We're in the business of segues, Wes, right? So speaking of segues, ITG has put together a ITG short dedicated to giving two some of the love that two deserves.
That's
So
right.
it's hashtag respect too. We have an upcoming video here. I'm trying to remember when it publishes, maybe next month, but it's in the library waiting to post. And it's dedicated to some of the stuff we're talking about with Rasheed, some of the things he accomplished.
Love it. Love it. Make sure you're checking out all those. Jed's been doing great work with the ITG shorts. They're on our Facebook. They're on our Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. In the Gun podcast is where you find us on all of your social media. Yeah, some good 60-second quick hitters that Jed does. And some of them are fun trivia. Some of them are blasts from the past with the guys like Rasheed Marshall. Some of them are talking about the offensive line that we have and the experience coming back to Morgantown this season. A lot of great stuff there that you've been doing yeoman's work on those, Jed, and we appreciate
let's talk about this. Is there a way to take the O-line video? Because we did talk about how battle test the O-line. It's one of the ITG shorts.
Yep.
And plug it into this actual episode.
We sure can.
Okay,
in fact, you want to do it? You want to do it right now?
Let's do it right now.
All right, we'll do it right now. Here's one of Jed's ITG shorts, all about the returning experience on the WVU offensive line for this season. Run! I mean, I tell you what, you knew Jed, pharmaceutical extraordinaire, sideline reporter, but I didn't know. I mean, content producer as well too. That's great stuff there, and that's got to get you excited when you see all that continuity that we got coming back on the offensive line.
I'm a monkey hitting a button. I mean, it's really, you can learn anything from how-to videos on YouTube, right?
You sure can.
But the content is vast. It's endless. I mean, you'll never run out of content to put together for these things. It's just a matter of having the chops or the wherewithal to know how.
Sure.
And I'm still trying to learn how to do that. But yeah, when you look at the offensive line, that was definitely one, because some of them are more time sensitive or contemporary, and talking about the 23 team, and that's one of them. When you look at what we have coming back up front, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I can see a path that we can have a high-end offense.
Oh,
but I don't see a path that we can have a high-end offense without the O-line being exceptional.
Completely agree. Completely agree. That's well said.
Look at the anchors of that unit, starting obviously from the middle, working your way out with Zach. I mean, one of the best, if not the best, center in college football coming back. I think you have an anchoring point at left tackle in Wyatt. I think you've got possibilities with your returning guards, plus the flexibility you're going to have with potentially with a couple swingmen in there. I mean, we had some success with Ja'Quay Hubbard and Brandon Yates at the tackle spot. When you look at Tomas Rimac coming back to left guard spot, obviously Doug Nestor, that was a coup to get Doug Nestor back at the right guard spot. But now those guys are kind of tinkering with the idea of, okay, well, let's just see. We always want to maintain the best five on the field. So sometimes that might mean certain person at right tackle,
sure.
Right guard. You want to have that flexibility. So that's critical to have that flexibility. Spring is when you test those waters. But it's nice to look at a video like that and be reminded, okay, yes, we're going to be asked to do a lot of building on both sides of the football this year. But when that's a cornerstone that you're building from, that offensive line,
good spot to start.
If they step up and play to their potential, a ton of things are possible. I think we could be an exceptional offensive football team only if that O-line plays with potential. Like I said, I can map out a pretty easy path to
100%.
finding a lot of success offensively, but I can't find that path without the O-line just being just mauling.
You need them to be that strong foundation. You absolutely do. Did you hear, speaking of spring ball, obviously we will have plenty more on spring ball. We're just a couple weeks away from the spring game at this point too, about 3 weeks. We'll have plenty more from spring ball as we roll along in the month of April. Did you see what Hubbard said, though, about his diet in Penn State this week?
No, I didn't.
Tell me you saw this. So he was asked, right, about just, you've lost some weight, you've had a body transformation, and he was kind of talking about, he was kind of talking about how, hey, my weight, it's been something that I've struggled with, that I've been working on, back to my high school days, like, being an offensive lineman, trying to make sure, though, that I'm not too heavy, that I'm at the right playing weight, right? And his joke was that they asked him, like, what's your diet look like this summer? And he said, well, honestly, I eat a lot of salad and I eat a lot of fried chicken. He said, but whenever I think about Penn State coming up in September, I forget the fried chicken and I just stick to the salad. Some good stuff there from Hubbard, talking about getting his body ready, the transformation to be ready for Penn State over Labor Day weekend in September. Obviously,
I mean, Wes, I
gotta love it.
As that approaches, imagine the conversations we're going to have. But you were the first one to say it a long time ago. That could end up being a whiteout on a Saturday night, right?
Oh, I know.
I know that could. And here's the first thing I'll say out of 1,000 things between now and that weekend, and first weekend of September. Highest ranked wins West Virginia has now, true road wins, not bowl games, because those are neutral sites. Highest ranked road wins West Virginia has, sticking in the spirit of ranked wins, like Rasheed earlier and Pat earlier, in the history of the program. What's the highest ranked team we've beaten in the history of the program on the road in a true road game? So, in other words, beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta, they were ranked number 3. It's not a true road game.
Right.
So, at the other team's venue, true road game, highest ranked wins.
Was it Hostetler in Norman?
It was Hostetler in Norman, ranked number 9. Okay. So, we've one other time beaten a number 9 on the road.
Penn State?
Penn State.
Interesting.
You have to go jump way back in the Wayback Machine. It's an era behind another era before another era. I mean, I need to go back.
Like pre-Paterno Penn State.
Maybe so. It was that far back. Okay. I know that Fred Wine had a lot of success, but I need to pinpoint the year. So, in other words, there's a lot of chatter that this Penn State team could be pushing the top 5.
Yep.
So we beat 2 9s on the road and a Penn State team and an Oklahoma, highest ranked road wins in the history of the school. So if Penn State is in fact pushing the top 5, winning that game, if you are so inclined, would literally be doing something West Virginia football has never in its history since 1890 done. The highest ranked. I think we have a really good chance to have an opportunity, at least.
Right.
Isn't going to happen. They will be ranked.
They'll be ranked 5, 6, 7, something like that.
And if you want to win that game, you're going to have to make history to do it. What's standing between you and a win is history.
History.
So, there's a good chance of that.
130 years of history of WVU football. Go get them. And maybe in the whiteout in prime time. Go get them.
Yeah, they might kind of sort of be pretty good.
Yeah. I tell you what, listen, I know I've said this on the podcast, but I'm going to be so ticked off when we end up going to Virginia Tech in prime time, to Pitt in prime time, to Penn State in prime time, and all those teams get to come to Morgantown for a noon game.
Yeah, noon game.
I tell you what, but we'll cross that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That's an interesting point, though, about that Penn State game. I didn't think about that. Obviously, we will talk about that game ad nauseum as we lead up to August as a Uhler, where half of our family is split between Happy Valley and Morgantown. I've been looking forward to that one for 32 years of my 32 years on this earth. So that one will be a lot of fun. Thanks to our friends at Fortis for presenting this episode as well, too, for roof performance and financial security guaranteed. Make sure you're checking out Fortis at fortis.us.com, and also to our buddies at Toothman Ford. Make sure you're getting down to Grafton. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Toothman Ford, they have a great inventory tool on their website for you to check everything, browse everything that they've got there before you make your way to Grafton. Jed, good stuff. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed reminiscing Rasheed Marshall and some of this other stuff that we kicked around. I think we'll have to keep this around campus thing going as well, too, whenever we need just a quick 3-minute shout out for the baseball team or the basketball team, or when Nikki Izzo Brown wins another Big 12 championship or something like that on the pitch, right? We'll keep that rolling. I like that around campus bit that we had there. But that'll do it for us this week. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to all of our sponsors. What you got for me?
Got your answer.
Okay.
1954. It was Fred Wyant.
1954.
19-14 in 1954.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that was just the other day. Yeah, I remember it well.
Don't want to leave you hanging, but the only, at some point, Rasheed Marshall might be the kind of guy we might have to yank him on here for a little bit.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. I would totally geek out. I would love it. Let's get Rasheed on here. Let's get Blaine on here. Let's get. You know what? Anytime that Owen's out, we'll just bring in a third.
That's right. Even though we're asking Owen to bring half our guests.
You missed it last week. We had Rasheed on the show. Sorry, buddy.
We got Owen working the phones for a couple guests.
We do. We're working on it. We've
some level with some others, but
it might be the off season, but we've got fun guests. We've got spring ball. We have got plenty to get to, and we'll continue to do that as we roll along in the month of April. But that'll do it for March. Thanks for listening. Thanks for dropping in, and we'll talk to you guys next week. As always, for Jed Drenning and our partner in crime, Owen Schmitt, I'm Wesley Uhler. Thanks for listening, everybody. You've been in the gun.